We're in Amsterdam at the Blockchain Expo, and we're here with Aleksi Aaltonen. What do you do, Aleksi? For what kind of companies are you working for?
At the moment, various types of blockchain development, from technical projects to ICO projects featuring the ICO technical aspects like the ICO platforms and ICO marketing services. So generally that kind of project.
What kind of trends do you see in the ICO world? I mean, one of the trends for funding is, for instance, the private sale becomes more important. Huh?
Yeah, I think one of the trends is definitely that private funding is becoming more important. Secondly, I think one of the major trends is that probably a lot of the scams are being wiped out. Probably not immediately, but over the long run they are running out. And I also see a lot of legislation coming in. The European Union is doing some stuff, and SEC in America is doing stuff, though. So there will be some legislation governing the ICOs in the future, which is only a good thing, I think.
So your position is that you're actually advising ICOs from A to Z?
Yeah, pretty much that, yeah.
And are there other trends you see in the market? I mean, technology-wise, maybe, of course, the dominance is Ethereum network. Maybe some other chains are coming up?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that I'm starting to see is that lately we've seen a lot of like platform after platform, but in the future I actually see that there are a lot of real-world projects that will incorporate blockchain technologies instead of just building platforms for doing something in the future.
Yeah. So the actual applications, the applications itself, the dApps will be more important actually.
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
And are there some industries where you think blockchain will do at its best actually?
Well, there are many. Certainly, of course, all the financial sectors where we have financial transfers, but also in the supply chain industry, I see a lot of potential. You know, when things are moved from A to B, supply chain. And I also like to see that real estate could be seen a big development with blockchain in the future.
You can sell fractions of real estate via the blockchain.
Yeah, fractions, for instance, and do like real estate development, not just sell individual buildings or apartments, but do like real estate development based on serial ICOs.
Okay. So the funding of real estate development via ICOs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And maybe you can tell something about the projects you're working on. One of the projects is eByte, a German company. Maybe you could tell, what do they do?
Yeah, eByte is one of them. They are practically building a blockchain for the esports industry. And the basic idea is that if we think about esports industry, it's still today quite centralized, and the big companies are leading the way. But what the eByte guys are doing, they make it possible for practically anyone to found leagues and teams and get players, and all that happens in the blockchain, and they have integrated automated smart contracts that can support the structure of a gaming league, for instance.
Okay.
So that's it's a fascinating project.
So is there real potential for eByte? I mean, it's quite a competitive industry.
Yeah, it's competitive, but also it's growing fast. If you look at the esports industry, it's already big, but it's definitely going to be 3-4 times bigger in the next few years. So there's a lot of room, and in fact, I don't really see that many competing projects at the moment that are doing exactly the same as eByte.
All right. And they use Ethereum network?
Ethereum at the moment, but they are building their own blockchain.
Wow. So actually, you're also involved in technology. Of course, you have these decentralized chains, like based on the Turing complete smart contract. Is that for you also still like the best option, or are there also some more centralized options?
I wouldn't say Ethereum is the best option in many cases actually. I'm not an engineer, so I cannot speak from a programmer's perspective, but I think that in many cases where I have been working, we have come to the point where we realize that Ethereum is not actually the best option.
So, and what is an alternative for Ethereum?
Well, there are a lot of alternatives these days. We should ask the tech guys to explain it to.
All right. And what you maybe you can tell something about the regulation. How do you see the space develop in the coming 6 to 12 months, actually?
Yeah, well, slowly is the short answer. I mean, for instance, in Europe, the ICOs are governed by the current laws, which actually don't really fit too well. And they're working on new regulation, but as you know, the European Union, it's gonna take years probably.
So say end of this year they have some kind of framework, but
yeah, well, framework, and then they will definitely fine tune it. So it's gonna take time.
All right. To close up, to sum up, do you do some trading yourself, or you don't trade at all cryptocurrencies?
I do some, but very little at the moment.
You buy and hold. And
yeah, I'm more of a holder than exchanger.
All right. And are you positive about the future of cryptocurrencies, as for instance as a way to pay or as a store of value, or?
Yeah, I think that cryptocurrencies, but also ICOs. I think that ICOs are the greatest innovation in corporate funding since the innovation of corporate funding. And yes, serious. There are many reasons, but the biggest problem actually now is the regulation that isn't there. But once we get there, I can guarantee you that it will be the biggest change in the investment and corporate funding.
Last question: what is needed? What kind of regulation is needed? Actually, I mean.
Well, I think from my perspective, regulation that will make it safe for average Joes and Jills to invest, because at the moment that's not happening, and there is so much potential that could be utilized.
Okay. Thank you very much, Aleksi, and all the best.
See you too.
Yes.